I think someone just tried to kidnap me. Oh my God! Those are the last words anyone close to 14-year-old April Milsap would ever hear from her. Shortly after that chilling message, which April sent to her boyfriend, a 911 dispatcher answered an equally disturbing call from a resident of Armada, Michigan. Armada, Michigan is a tiny village located about an hour's drive from Detroit, but seemingly a million light years away from its troubles, especially its crime rate. Fewer than 2,000 people live in the village, and its police department reflects the size of the population it protects. Only 2 full-time officers serve the town, along with 10 part-time deputies. Life in quiet, small-town Armada changed forever the day 14-year-old April Milsap went missing after heading out for a walk with her beloved dog on a warm July evening. April lived with her mother, Jennifer, and stepfather, David Lichtenfeld, and she was their only child. David truly believed this was a safe place to raise a family. After all, the last murder in Armada had occurred back in 1973, but on July 24, 2014, a call to 911 shattered that peace. A young couple reported they had found a body near the popular Macomb Orchard Trail. They said they had been walking when a border collie ran up to them, then darted back toward the woods. The dog repeated this behavior several times, making it clear she wanted them to follow. They did, and were led to a ravine in the forest, where they found the body of a girl. Local officers knew they couldn't handle this alone and immediately contacted the Michigan State Police. Detective Rebecca MacArthur, the only female detective on the case, arrived at the crime scene. What she saw horrified her. The victim was a teenage girl, and the brutality of the attack was immediately apparent. The condition of the girl's clothing suggested a possible sexual motive. News of the horrific discovery spread rapidly through the small town, and while detectives were still processing the scene, they were informed that a woman had just arrived, the mother of a local girl who had gone missing after taking her dog for a walk. Jennifer Milsap, the mother of April, and April's boyfriend, who was with her, were taken to the station for questioning. When Jennifer described her daughter, April's appearance, and their dog, detectives immediately knew the girl they had found in the woods was her. Detectives asked Jennifer if April had taken anything with her. She said yes, a cell phone and a black backpack. Jennifer added that April had left the house around 6 p.m., and when she didn't return within an hour and her phone began going straight to voicemail, she started calling April's friends, and eventually her boyfriend Austin Albertson. Austin in turn told investigators that he and April had been dating for a year and a half, but admitted they had argued just days before. April had seen something on his phone and misunderstood it. The two exchanged several angry messages that Austin later deleted. Overall, the situation wasn't looking good for him. Police had no choice but to consider the teen their prime suspect, especially after he showed them one message he hadn't deleted, a chilling text April had sent him at 6:28 p.m. that evening. It read, "I think someone just tried to kidnap me. Oh my God." Officers were stunned that Austin didn't call 911, but he claimed he thought April was exaggerating or joking and said he hadn't even seen the message until nearly an hour later because at the time, around 6:30 p.m., he and a friend were picking up fast food from a drive-thru. Police wanted to believe him, but something troubled them. April's phone was missing. Could Austin have sent that text to himself after killing her? If so, what did he do with the phone afterward? At sunrise, officers launched a search for April's phone. They tracked the cell signal, and just as they were closing in, the signal disappeared. Search dogs were brought in, and they managed to locate the phone less than a kilometer from the crime scene. It was immediately sent to the Michigan Crime Lab for analysis. Meanwhile, detectives followed up on Austin's alibi. Surveillance footage from the fast food restaurant confirmed that he and his friend were there at the time he claimed. He also passed a polygraph test. Around that same time, the medical examiner's report arrived. April's cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation, and the estimated time of death completely ruled out Austin. It occurred while he was seen on security footage. Although April's clothes had been pulled down, there were no signs of sexual assault. Still, that didn't mean the killer hadn't intended to commit one. Perhaps he was interrupted, maybe by April's dog or something else. But the most crucial clue found on April's body was this: a perfectly preserved shoe print, so clear that investigators could identify the brand's logo. While examining April's phone, forensic specialists discovered it had a fitness tracking app installed, one that recorded her route and walking speed. On that tragic day, April left home with her dog, Penny, at 6 p.m. They were moving at a steady pace of 6 kilometers per hour. Then at 6:20 p.m., April suddenly turned around and began walking faster. For the next 15 minutes, the app tracked erratic, zigzag movements. It was heartbreaking for investigators to realize what that meant. This was when the attack happened, and April was fighting desperately for her life. Sadly, her attacker overpowered her. But after committing the crime, the killer made a critical mistake. He took April's phone with him, which allowed police to track his movements using that same fitness app. After 15 minutes of chaotic motion, the phone suddenly stopped. Then it began moving again, this time at 24 kilometers per hour. April couldn't move that fast on foot, so the killer must have had some sort of vehicle. By tracing the route and matching it to the crime timeline, investigators found surveillance footage from a camera in Armada showing a person on a motorcycle turning a corner at exactly 6:49 p.m. Unfortunately, the rider was wearing a helmet, making it impossible to see the face. More than 100 police officers were dispatched to search for witnesses who might have been on the bike trail the day of the murder. Officers soon located several people who had seen a man on a blue and white motorcycle, which stood out since motorcycles weren't allowed on that path. One woman reported seeing a motorcycle parked near the trail with a man standing in the bushes nearby. She said they locked eyes for a moment and described his stare as intense and piercing, as if he'd just been caught doing something wrong. With her help, a composite sketch of the man was created. 4 days into the investigation, a family came forward with one of the most promising leads. A father and his 2 daughters said that when April's photo appeared on the news, they realized they had seen her that day, accompanied by a motorcyclist on the same trail. They described April as typing something on her phone, while a man on a motorcycle followed just behind her. He stood out immediately because, again, motorcycles weren't permitted on the trail. They didn't see the pair talk, but the body language between them seemed tense, like they had just had an argument. They said the man looked like he could be April's boyfriend or even her stepfather, and confirmed that the motorcycle was blue and white. Chances are this family was the last to see April alive. Investigators now had one more solid clue that the man on the motorcycle was their suspect. All that remained was to find him. By a lucky twist of fate, while police officer Raymond Pechman was driving to the station, he spotted a motorcycle in the driveway of a house that matched the description of the suspect's vehicle. He pulled over and took photos of the bike. Pechman then drove to the station and showed the images to the detectives, who gave him the green light to speak with the homeowner. The man told him that the motorcycle didn't belong to him, but to a friend, James Vancalis, who lived about 60 kilometers from Armada in a town called Wales Township. Raymond drove to James Vancalis's house to ask him a few questions. James greeted him rather politely and explained that on the day in question, he had arrived at his brother's house in Armada around 6 p.m. and had stayed there until 8 p.m. Raymond asked James one more question: what shoes he had worn that day. James showed him a pair of sneakers, but the sole pattern didn't match the one found on the victim. Raymond left, but he admits that even then, he had a strange feeling about James. While James wasn't ruled out as a suspect, there was still no direct evidence linking him to the crime. His brother confirmed James had visited that day, but the police decided to get a written statement from Vancalis. When Raymond returned to his house, James refused to talk, saying he had things to do. Once again, Raymond had a strange feeling after speaking with him. It was even more suspicious that James had gone from being friendly to uncooperative in less than 24 hours. Raymond also noted that James's appearance loosely resembled the composite sketch. Police checked James Vancalis's name in the database and discovered 2 men with that name, a father and son. Both had criminal records, and 66-year-old Vancalis Sr. had once been accused of involvement with a minor. But the focus wasn't on him. Instead, it was on 32-year-old James Jr., who had been charged in 2005 and 2006 with breaking and entering and failure to pay child support. Police obtained cell phone records and discovered that James had been at a gas station near the crime scene. Detective Rebecca MacArthur explained that James could have accessed the trail right around the time April had been walking there. Police now had enough evidence to obtain a search warrant for James's home. While they didn't find anything directly linking him to April's murder, they did discover hallucinogenic plants growing on the property. They arrested both men, father and son, on drug-related charges. While the 2 were in custody, detectives continued working to find any evidence connecting James to the murder, but nothing definitive emerged. When investigators were beginning to lose hope, help came from an unexpected source. After James's arrest, his girlfriend, Crystal Stadler, asked to speak with detectives. She said that James was a controlling and abusive man who didn't allow her to leave the house or call anyone without his permission, and he monitored her every move. Crystal admitted she was afraid of Vancalis, but decided to come forward after seeing the pain April's family was going through and because of James's strange behavior. The night after the murder, she had woken up and seen him cleaning his motorcycle helmet and shoes with hand sanitizer. He told her he had spilled some gasoline on them. Then he added that he had done something stupid and needed her to be on his side. Crystal didn't fully understand what he meant until the police came to talk to him. More importantly, Crystal claimed that the shoes James showed the police were not the ones he wore that day. The shoes he was cleaning were actually a pair of black and white Air Jordans. After Crystal's statement, the police searched James's house again, but they couldn't find the sneakers. However, they did find a video on James's phone, and for a brief moment in the footage, he pointed the camera at his feet, wearing those exact Air Jordans. They also found a photo on his Facebook where he was wearing the same shoes. To confirm the shoe tread, investigators obtained an identical pair, and the sole pattern matched the print found at the crime scene. As horrifying as it sounds, asterisk, they were able to see the imprint of the Air Jordan logo, a silhouette of a man with a basketball on April's face. Finally, after re-interviewing James's brother, detectives learned that James had indeed visited him that night, but much later than he had originally claimed. James Vancalis was still in jail when he was officially charged with the murder of April Milsap. On January 20th, 2016, James stood trial. Jennifer, April's mother, said she was shocked by how cold and emotionless he looked. He even smirked and laughed at times. Prosecutors admitted they didn't have DNA or fingerprints, but they did have an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence linking James to the crime. Witness testimonies, cell phone data, the fitness app, video footage of a motorcyclist leaving the scene, and even statements from James's own family, who said he asked them to lie about what shoes he wore that day. The prosecution painted Vancalis as a dangerous predator who frequently searched the internet for how to attract much younger girls. They claimed the crime started as a chance encounter on the trail when James tried putting some of that online advice into action. He may have said or done something that unsettled April, causing her to try to walk away and text her boyfriend. At that moment, she likely believed the danger had passed, but police believe that's when James suddenly attacked her. April fought desperately for 15 minutes, but ultimately couldn't escape. James's defense claimed he was framed and that there was no direct evidence, no DNA, hairs, fibers, or motorcycle tracks tying him to the crime. In response, the prosecution pointed out that even James's own DNA was missing from his helmet, proving how meticulously he had cleaned it. After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury found James Vancalis guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In July 2015, a community garden was created in memory of April Milsap. The garden is located at the very beginning of the bike trail. There are photos of April and a statue of her loyal dog Penny, who on that fateful day was able to show strangers where to find her little owner. And without her, it's very likely April would never have been found. Armada, Michigan will forever carry a bleeding wound on its heart, but this garden is a step toward healing. A garden that embodies everything the girl loves so much. We all planted flowers. Here is a photo of April. This place means a lot to me. She was my best friend. It brings me comfort just knowing there is a place dedicated to her, says her friend Serena. Although April's mother, Jennifer, can find some peace here, it is not easy for her to let go of the thoughts about what happened. All she has left are memories in her daughter's urn with ashes. I hold April, she says. This is all I have left of her.